The presidential pardon is nothing new. Going all the way back to George Washington and all the way up through modern times, almost every single president has used the pardon at one time or another. Now, some presidents use it to great lengths to pardon hundreds of thousands of people with the swipe of a pen, and others may use it a couple dozen times. But really, the ones we focus on are the controversial pardons, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Why Joe Biden pardoning his son is such a freaking disgrace to everybody out there, including gun owners. Now, I don't want to so much focus on the why, because I think that's kind of obvious. I want to focus on the timing of why he did it. And maybe there is another why I want to focus on, actually, and that's why it's such a disgrace to each one of us. And really, it comes down to Joe Biden himself. I think you'll find some of this stuff very interesting, maybe some stuff you didn't know about, maybe some stuff other people aren't talking about when it comes to this. But I want to focus on the gun aspect, of course, because that's what we talk about here, but there's some other things I want to throw in there as well. Now, your opinion in these types of videos, the comment section is is a riot a lot of the time. So I want to hear you guys. Whether you agree or disagree with me, it doesn't matter. Leave your opinion down below. I also want to hear some guesses before we start the video as to the only presidents who haven't used the presidential pardon. Make sure you leave those guesses. I'm about to give you the answer to that here in just a couple of seconds. So make sure you put those down below. Go ahead and pause the video. Let's go ahead and jump right in. Now, which two presidents never used their presidential pardon? Well, there was William Henry Harrison. He was like one of the, maybe the shortest serving president as far as time. Literally, he served for a month and he ended up getting sick and passing away before he could really do anything. Literally, a month after he took the oath, he passed away. So there's that. And then James Garfield, who was assassinated in 1881. He took the oath of office in March, and in September, he was assassinated. So those are the only two. Now, one thing I want to talk about here really quick is some of the most controversial and interesting pardons that have ever been used. So you had ones like Gerald Ford. He pardoned Richard Nixon over Watergate. He also pardoned Robert E. Lee, Confederate general, posthumously, of course. You had Jimmy Carter, who pardoned 200,000 Vietnam War drafty Dodgers, essentially, right? So there was that. And then he also pardoned Jefferson Davis, who was the president, of course, of the Confederate States of America. You had Bill Clinton, who pardoned Rick Hendrick over mail fraud. Now, this was something that was popular, especially in the 20th century, right? Or all the way up, yeah, pretty much in the 20th century, mail fraud. That was a pretty big thing that quite a few people were actually pardoned for. But Rick Hendrick, I had no clue that even went on. But in the 80s, that was something that he was involved in, and he admitted to it, but he was pardoned by Bill Clinton. George W. Bush actually pardoned Charles Winters for smuggling 3 B-17 Flying Fortresses into Israel during the Arab-Israeli War in 1948. That's no small feat, and I guess for pulling that off the way he did, it was just absolutely incredible. He got pardoned by George W. Bush. So let's look at Hunter and Joe Biden and this whole thing, because we have to, when we're looking at the timing, we really need to look at what has happened up to this point right here. And so going all the way back to when Hunter was convicted, Joe Biden has said multiple times,
called "No one is above the law" amendment. No one is above the law. That no one is above the law. In my administration, no one is above the law.
His press secretary has said multiple times,
When will the president pardon or commute his son if he's convicted?
So I've answered this question before. It was asked of me not too long ago, a couple of weeks ago, and I was very clear, and I said no.
I know you said not a lot's changed since yesterday and that it's a personal matter, but from a presidential perspective, is there any possibility that the president would end up pardoning his son?
No.
And yet, here we are. So I think the timing, of course, after the election, he did not want to make it seem like, you know, he was going to do something like this in case Kamala were to have won, right? He didn't want to create any kind of controversy, obviously, for his own party, so he would have never done this before the election. So that's kind of a given there. Also, doing this kind of before his last day in office is interesting too. There is definitely a reason there. But there's something known as like the midnight pardon, where there will be presidents that will take their last hours in office and pardon people that are more controversial, right? Bill Clinton did it for his half-brother. Obama did it as well. Anyways, there are people that will do that. I think even Trump did it, right? So at the end of the day, almost all presidents will do that. Well, Biden has like 2 months of controversy. Let's just be honest. Does Biden really care at this point? Probably not. He doesn't have any skin in the game. He doesn't have an election that he's going to lose. There's nothing really there. But there is something interesting about the timing, because Hunter Biden was supposed to be sentenced mid-December. And, well, of course, that will not happen because the way the pardon works, he set it back to 2014. So going all the way back to 2014 to now, Hunter Biden can never be investigated for anything that happened during that period. Now, of course, his press secretary said that he was struggling with the decision to do this. And let's just be real. It's his son, right? They spent Thanksgiving together, and Hunter's, hey, Dad, hey, remember that whole pardoning thing you got? You can do that? And Joe's probably like, huh, what are you talking about, son? And then, maybe he remembers at some point. And, anyways, I'm not sure how the conversation went, but I'm sure it was something close to that. Now, here's one thing that Joe Biden didn't lie about, and that is the fact that there are very few people that are actually charged with this crime specifically, lying on a 4473, when it comes to any kind of drug possession. So I looked at some numbers from 2020, and out of 25 million applicants, like 1.3% of them were denied. So almost 400,000. Well, then you break that down further, and they got to something like 8.6% of those people out of the 400,000 were denied because of any kind of drug-related charges. Remember, the questions on the 4473, you have 9 disqualifying factors for buying a firearm. And if you are in a state, this is something important to remember, if you're in a state where they have legalized the use of Mary Jane, we'll just put it like that. I did a whole video talking about this, and YouTube didn't like that. But anyways, if you're in one of those states, on a federal level, it is still illegal. So if you answer that question, even if you are a medical user, you are still technically breaking federal law. But again, there's very few that are actually prosecuted for doing something like this. I saw one study one report from 2019 that showed that federal prosecutors brought 500 cases, and only 298 of them were actually convicted out of like 27 million applicants that year. It's a very small number. But it's a high-profile case because of who it is, and because of who his dad is, and what he's made his entire political career, or at least a big part of it, about, which is guns. And so for somebody to be so anti-gun and so pro-gun control, whichever way you want to look at it, and then to have his own son breaking gun laws, the irony there, it's just, it's incredible, man, because anybody else, if you are not Joe Biden's son, you're going to be doing some serious time, regardless of how often it's actually convicted or not. And if you break any kind of firearm laws, whatever, on a federal level, dude, people go to jail for a long time for doing this. And the double standard is just kind of disgusting, right? And so I don't think anybody blames a dad for pardoning his son. But if Biden believed in the DOJ as much as he's been saying,
will you accept the jury's outcome, their verdict, no matter what it is?
Yes.
And have you ruled out a pardon for your son?
Yes.
if he trusted the jury's decision, and if he wanted to salvage any part of what his presidency has looked like, or any kind of positive out of it, he would have left it alone. But of course, he did not. Now, I think it's kind of funny that he's talking about how his son this is politically motivated. Well, so is J6, right? Now, let's just be honest. There were some stupid people there that did some stupid things. Was it like a day which will live in infamy, like Pearl Harbor? No. They blew it up way, way out of proportion, way more than what it should have ever been done. And that was for political purposes. And it almost worked, right? It left Trump in a position where he was pretty much a fish out of water. I mean, he was really done. That's why they say this is like the greatest political comeback ever, because his political career January 7th was pretty much done. They politicized it as much as they could, right, to make sure that Trump wouldn't come back. Trump came back, what did they do? Make sure to go after him for documents in Mar-a-Lago. Well, Joe Biden has documents too. Never mind that. Trump has documents. No, that didn't work. That didn't make him look too bad. Well, what else can we convict him on? Oh, man, 34 times convicted. He's a felon. Nobody's going to vote for that. So they have obviously played political games as well. Biden's own DOJ that he trusts so much and is on the up and up, they have used it against Trump as well. And fortunately, you know, this guy will be out of office and he will be out of politics forever, and he's just one of many that we need to get out of there 100%. Biden is the swamp. He's like the poster child for what the swamp actually is. And so that's exactly the kind of people that don't need to be in politics for a frickin' half a century, that hopefully at some point we could actually put some kind of term limits on everybody and make sure that nobody kind of sticks around as long as they have been. He's made an entire career doing what he's done, and of course he's only going to stand up for what he believes in as long as it doesn't affect him or his family. There you go. That's my beliefs on it and my opinion, and of course I want to hear yours, no matter what it is. Make sure you leave that down below. If you like what I do, consider subscribing. See you in the next one, and as always, hold them down.